Morning class. We're going to talk about ancient Chinese cats. So to begin, ancient China, cats, ancient Chinese cats. There's been a history among humans with animals that spans since the beginning of time, with worshiping, companionship, and even entertainment. Cats specifically have a set of skills that put them at the upper echelon of companions. With it being separated into two kinds of people who'd own cats in ancient China, nobility and common folk. They had different purposes, the cats, with nobility seeing them as companions, pets, similar to modern man. While common folk had a business arrangement with the cats, since cats were such keen hunters, they were kept around as pest control. They were fed in return. With addition of a cat goddess, it allowed for people to have an appreciation of the animal. And with them having a populace, there's always going to be a majority of people, which the common folk and most were farmers, making the cats have a decent role in the economy, aka protecting the crops and product from rodents. The appeal of the cats were also attributed to the bacteria they have, Toxoplasma gondii. There's no real evidence they were very prominent in China, but trade was booming, and it may have been covered with the Silk Road, because in Egypt there were a lot of cats and it was very prominent there. And going back to the worship of cats, there was a creation myth where the cats were made to rule the earth by the gods. They're really lazy and chose leisure instead of power. What ensued afterward was chaos. So the gods gave responsibility to humans. They'd rather be lazy and chill. Even the cats agreed. They could talk, but they gave it all up for a life of greed and laziness and sloth. There was also a creation myth where, well, it's not a myth, but more of symbolism, how they were good fortune and they warded off evil spirits. There's a whole story about why cats aren't a Chinese zodiac, with kids wondering, how come cats aren't a part of the zodiac? It really makes sense because cats were never really around back then, and the zodiac stopped production basically and stopped development because times were changing and they didn't really need that. The warring states were ending and a new era of prosperity and trade were coming in, and that's also why the cats weren't a part of it. They barely came in. They were a product of trade and so on. With the trade happening, they traded with various communities, and even other cats like lions and even tigers, they also came along. They were also prominent figures during the Song Dynasty. They found their ways into poems, artworks, and idioms like phrases and such. The lions and tigers held certain power behind them, certain symbols, symbolism, meanings. They were the cat's bigger and badder cousins. The lions, there's guardian lions, like a gargoyle. The people who would be gatekeepers, they would keep you safe. You see how in the temple, they're always there. They're keeping guard, just like that. Those were lions. Even though they're called dogs, they're lions, and lions are also felines. Therefore, they're from the same family. And the tigers, they had lots of influence on martial arts. They were made into jewelry as talismans and a symbol of bravery. People really looked up to them, along with being a symbol of leadership. The forehead patterns on them, tigers, they were the character for a king, or at least it looked like it. So they associated it with them being the king of animals. Overall, the presence of cats, almost every kind, is worldwide. And for China specifically, there are great companions who are friends, business partners, or a goal to reach, someone to look up to. That's the end of the video. Thank you.